Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something you probably don't often consider when you think of glorious Rome, the soul-crushing boredom of political life. Forget the toga-clad heroes passionately debating. That's mostly Hollywood fantasy. The reality was a grinding, bureaucratic machine, fueled by privilege and powered by tedium. It was a place where prestige met procedural monotony, where the fate of an empire often hinged on which senator could drone on the longest. Before we dive into the dusty corridors of the Curia, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe for more deep dives, and tell me in the comments below where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Alright, find that cozy spot, pull your blanket up high, and let's journey back to a world where comfort was a luxury and a good nap in the Senate was a skill. You stir, not to the gentle hum of a smart alarm or the soft glow of a bedside lamp, but to the insistent, rhythmic clatter that bleeds through the thick, windowless walls of your sprawling Roman domus. It's still dark, the pre-dawn chill clinging to the heavy wool blankets that are your sole defense against the night's persistent damp. Your sleep, never truly deep, has been a fitful tapestry woven with the anxieties of tomorrow's session in the Curia Hostilia. You don't wake refreshed. You wake to the weight of expectation, the relentless, suffocating pressure that is the daily bread of a Roman senator. The air in your sleeping chamber, typically stuffy despite the open vents high on the walls, now feels like a tomb. You push yourself up, the ancient springs of your wooden bed groaning in protest. A sound as familiar as the rasp of your own breath. Your muscles ache. A dull throb in your lower back from yesterday's hours spent perched on a hard senatorial bench, listening to Quintus Fabius Maximus drone on about some obscure land dispute in Umbria. There was no comfortable ergonomic chair for you, no padded cushion to ease the strain. Just wood, stone, and the unyielding expectation of perfect posture. A physical manifestation of your moral rectitude and social standing. You swing your legs over the side, your bare feet meeting the cold mosaic floor. The chill seeps instantly into your bones, a sharp, unpleasant shock that jolts you fully awake. No underfloor heating here, no plush rug to soften the transition. Just the brutal honesty of stone, reminding you of the harsh realities that underpin even your privileged existence. A slave, alerted by your movements, slips silently into the room. A flickering oil lamp held aloft, casting dancing shadows that stretch and shrink like specters on the walls. Its acrid smoke stings your nostrils. A constant companion to Roman indoor life, a far cry from the clean, filtered air you breathe in your modern home. Your morning ablutions are not the leisurely steaming affair you might enjoy today. A small basin of cold water is brought, a rough sponge offered. You wash quickly, the shock of the cold water on your face an invigorating but unpleasant wake-up call. There's no fragrant soap, no soft towel, just coarse linen and water drawn from a distant aqueduct, its purity always a concern. You shave yourself with a bronze razor, its edge less keen than modern steel, requiring careful, practiced strokes. The risk of a nick, a small cut that could fester in this world devoid of antibiotics, is a constant, quiet worry. Then comes the elaborate process of dressing. Your tunic, a simple linen garment, is slipped on first. Then the toga, that magnificent, cumbersome symbol of Roman citizenship and senatorial dignity. It's not a garment designed for comfort or practicality. It's a statement. You stand patiently as your personal slave, expertly trained, begins to drape the vast expanse of wool around you. The fabric is heavy, scratchy, its natural lanolin smell a constant presence. It must be folded just so, one arm left free, the other enveloped, a long, flowing swathe of fabric draped over your shoulder and across your body. It's an exercise in patience and precision, a daily reminder of your role. You can feel its weight, literally, pressing down on you. It restricts your movement, forcing a dignified, measured pace. No quick strides or sudden gestures for a man in a toga. You are always on display, always performing. The crisp, clean white of your toga, meticulously laundered and pressed, is itself a sign of your wealth and status, a stark contrast to the often grimy, earth-toned clothing of the common people you will pass. As you dress, your mind races. What is on the agenda today? Will it be another debate about grain distribution, or perhaps the tedious technical details of a new road construction project in Cisalpine Gaul? You mentally rehearse your position, considering which allies to consult, which opponents to subtly undermine. The Roman Senate is not a place for spontaneous outbursts. It is a meticulously choreographed dance of alliances, traditions, and procedural maneuvers. Every word, every gesture must be carefully considered. Pre-calculated. Breakfast is a meager affair. Perhaps a piece of bread dipped in wine, a few olives, or some dried fruit. No morning coffee, no scrambled eggs, no fresh orange juice. The food is simple, functional, designed to sustain, not to delight. You eat standing, quickly, your mind already miles away, already in the curia, already facing the day's political challenges. The smells of the household begin to drift in, the smoky tang from the kitchen hearth, the earthy scent of the garden, the faint, underlying odor of sewage from the streets outside. Rome, for all its grandeur, is a city of pervasive smells, a constant assault on the senses. The time for your departure arrives. Your litter, a small, enclosed box carried by 4 sturdy slaves, waits outside your door. It's not a smooth ride. The streets of Rome are cobbled, uneven, often muddy or dusty depending on the weather. As the slaves lift the litter, you feel the jolts and sway, a constant motion that can quickly induce nausea. The sounds of the waking city assault you, the creak of cartwheels, the shouts of vendors, the distant braying of donkeys, the incessant chatter of slaves, the heavy clop of horses' hooves. Rome is a loud city, a cacophony of human and animal sounds that never truly subsides. Peeking through the small opening of your litter, you catch glimpses of the city around you. The narrow, winding streets, thronged with people, slaves rushing to their duties, merchants setting up stalls, artisans opening their workshops. The air is thick with the dust kicked up by countless feet, the smoke from cooking fires, the pungent aroma of human sweat and animal waste. You see the intricate graffiti scrawled on walls, the fading frescoes on private homes, the imposing arches and temples that loom over the more mundane structures. You are surrounded by life, by humanity in all its raw, vibrant, often squalid forms. And you, a senator, are elevated above it all, physically and socially, but never truly separate. The problems of this bustling, chaotic city are your problems, the burden of its governance, your daily grind. You are a part of this ancient machine, a cog in a vast, intricate system that dictates the lives of millions. From the squalid slums of Suburra to the far-flung provinces of the empire. And the weight of it all, the immense, relentless weight, settles upon your shoulders with the same certainty as the scratchy wool of your toga. Your litter finally deposits you at the foot of the Palatine Hill. near the venerable old Curia Hostilia, or perhaps the newer, grander Curia Julia, depending on the era we're imagining, though the essence of the place remains much the same. You step out, the cobblestones cold beneath your senatorial sandals, and the cacophony of the forum engulfs you. This isn't a quiet, respectful approach to a hallowed hall of government. This is a bustling marketplace, a social hub, a veritable beehive of activity. The air is thick with noise, the hawking of vendors selling everything from bread to cheap trinkets, the passionate cries of lawyers arguing cases in the Basilica Julia, the murmuring of citizens gossiping, the insistent shouts of scribes offering their services. It's a sensory overload, a stark, immediate contrast to the relative quiet of your domas. You nod curtly to your loyal clients who have been waiting patiently, forming a small entourage around you. These are men who depend on your patronage, offering their support and applause in exchange for your influence and protection. Their presence is both a mark of your status and an unspoken obligation, a reminder of the intricate web of social duties that bind you. You exchange brief greetings, a carefully choreographed dance of respect and hierarchy, before pushing your way through the throng. As you approach the Curia, its imposing facade, built of brick and faced with gleaming marble, offers a brief respite from the chaos. It's a powerful, almost intimidating structure designed to convey authority and permanence. But as you step through the heavy wooden doors, you don't enter a quiet, climate-controlled chamber. Instead, you are met with a different kind of sensory assault. The interior air is heavy, stale, carrying the faint, lingering scent of old sweat, oiled wood, and a dusty, almost metallic temps that seems characteristic of ancient stone. It's a smell that speaks of countless hours of men gathered, of passions debated and decisions forged, but also of stagnation and the sheer weight of time. The vast chamber itself is surprisingly austere. No luxurious carpets, no elaborate tapestries, just rows of wooden benches, rising in a gentle semicircle, facing a central speaker's platform. The floor is likely a simple, worn mosaic or polished stone. The walls are unadorned, perhaps a few strategically placed statues of revered ancestors or deified emperors, their silent gazes adding to the pervasive sense of tradition and gravitas. The light, filtering in from high windows, is often muted, casting long shadows that make the chamber feel cavernous and somewhat somber. On a cloudy day, or in the early morning, it can be quite dim, emphasizing the coldness of the stone and the hard lines of the benches. You make your way to your assigned seat, another daily ritual. There's no nameplate, no personal marker. Your position is known, understood, and rigidly enforced by tradition and seniority. You sit, the unyielding wood pressing against your toga, already feeling the familiar discomfort that will be your companion for the next several hours. You look around, acknowledging fellow senators with a nod or a brief, formal greeting. You observe their faces, reading the subtle clues in their expressions: weariness, ambition, a flicker of boredom, a spark of anticipation. This is the inner sanctum where the true power of Rome is supposed to reside. Yet it often feels less like a vibrant engine of governance and more like a dusty, echoing waiting room. The chamber is beginning to fill. A low hum of voices rising as more senators arrive. This isn't the hushed reverence you might expect. It's a hall of whispers, of furtive conversations, of alliances being forged or broken in hushed tones. You see senators clustering together, heads bowed, sharing morsels of political intelligence, calculating strategies for the day's debates. Some exchange pleasantries, others maintain a studied aloofness. You engage in your own low-voiced discussions, reinforcing your positions, testing the waters for potential support or opposition on upcoming votes. The air, though heavy, is also charged with a subtle tension. The underlying currents of ambition and rivalry that constantly churn beneath the surface of Roman politics. You notice the elderly senators, some barely able to walk, leaning heavily on their slaves as they are guided to their seats. Their faces are etched with decades of political struggle, their eyes perhaps holding a flicker of the fire that once drove them, now mostly a dull resignation. They are the living embodiments of tradition, their presence a constant reminder of the long history of this body. And then there are the younger senators, fresh-faced and eager, perhaps newly inducted from a long line of noble ancestors, their ambition barely concealed beneath a veneer of practiced gravitas. You were once one of them, full of youthful vigor and idealistic notions, now tempered by years of procedural wrangling and the often disappointing reality of Roman governance. The smells inside are subtly different from the street. Here, the scent of expensive perfumes and unguents, used by the more fastidious senators, mixes with the persistent smell of wool, lamp oil, and the ever-present dust. There's a faint, underlying dampness that pervades ancient buildings, a cool, earthy scent that never quite leaves the stone. You might even catch the faint whiff of unwashed bodies if you're close to a less diligent senator, for bathing practices, while common, were not always as thorough or as frequent as modern hygiene dictates. The murmuring continues, rising and falling like the tide. You listen, you observe, you absorb. You are not just sitting. You are constantly processing, evaluating, positioning yourself. The boring reality of the Senate is not a passive boredom. It's an active, watchful state of being, an anticipation of the protracted tedium to come, but also a readiness for the brief moments when an opportunity might arise, a weakness exploited, an alliance cemented. The Hall of Whispers is both a prelude to the day's formal proceedings and a stage for a continuous, subtle drama, one played out in sidelong glances, hushed conversations, and the calculated movements of powerful men. The murmuring finally begins to subside, not with a sudden gong or a forceful gavel, but with a gradual, almost imperceptible shift in the atmosphere. The presiding magistrate, perhaps a consul or a praetor, has arrived and taken his seat on the elevated platform. He may make a brief, perfunctory statement, but often the proceedings simply begin. And so, the real work of the Roman Senate, the interminable debates and dry oratory, unfolds before you, much like a long, predictable play with an often inspired script. You settle in, adjusting your toga, trying to find a position that will offer some elusive modicum of comfort on the hard wooden bench. It's an exercise in futility. Your back already aches, and the constant need to maintain a dignified posture, even while listening to the most mind-numbingly dull speech, adds to the physical strain. You cross your ankles, then uncross them. You shift your weight. You surreptitiously massage your temples, hoping no one notices your growing fatigue. The sheer physical endurance required for a senatorial session is often underestimated. The first speaker rises, perhaps to present a report from a provincial governor, or to initiate a discussion on a new law concerning municipal sanitation. You listen, or rather, you appear to listen. Your gaze is fixed on the speaker, your expression appropriately attentive, but your mind is often elsewhere, drifting. You've heard variations of this speech countless times before. The flowery language, the classical allusions, the carefully structured arguments, they all follow a predictable pattern. The Roman rhetorical style, while impressive in its mastery, is also deeply formulaic, designed for gravitas rather than conciseness. The orator begins, his voice echoing in the vast chamber, perhaps a bit too loudly at first, then settling into a steady, often monotonous rhythm. He uses elaborate metaphors, quotes from ancient texts, and meticulously dissects every clause of the proposed motion. He speaks of the ancestors, of Roman virtues, of the glory of the Republic, even if the topic is something as mundane as the allocation of funds for a new aqueduct. The sheer length of these speeches is astounding. There are no strict time limits, as there might be in modern parliamentary debates. A senator is expected to speak for as long as he deems necessary to present his case fully, and sometimes simply to demonstrate his stamina and rhetorical skill. You've endured speeches that lasted hours, stretching on like a particularly stubborn Roman road. You find your thoughts wandering. What's for dinner tonight? Did your land steward remember to send the grain you requested from your country estate? Your eyes scan the other senators. You catch a fleeting glance of boredom on the face of an older colleague, a subtle shift in posture that betrays a lack of engagement. You see a younger man diligently taking notes, perhaps hoping to impress with his earnestness. You watch for signs of dissent or agreement, trying to gauge the mood of the room, preparing for your own turn, or for the eventual vote. The specifics of the debate are often esoteric, dealing with the minutiae of Roman law, provincial administration, or military logistics. You are expected to be an expert in all of it, or at least to feign expertise convincingly. The arguments are often technical, involving complex legal precedents or detailed financial figures. Imagine sitting through hours of a highly detailed presentation on tax codes or zoning regulations, but delivered in Latin, with no visual aids beyond the speaker's gestures, and with a constant underlying current of political maneuvering. This is your reality. The air in the curia grows heavy as the hours pass. The light changes, perhaps a beam of sun briefly piercing through a high window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, only to recede into gloom again. The murmurs, though subdued during a speech, still never completely cease. A cough here, a rustle there, the soft creak of a bench, the barely audible whisper of a slave delivering a message to his master. These are the sounds of boredom trying to assert itself, of human impatience straining against the strictures of senatorial decorum. Sometimes, a debate might ignite into genuine passion, a rare flash of fire amidst the ashes of routine. Two powerful senators, long-standing rivals, might clash over a matter of profound importance, their voices rising, their gestures becoming more expansive. These are the moments you live for, the brief, exhilarating breaks from the monotony, when the theatricality of Roman politics truly comes alive. But such moments are few and far between. More often, the debates are a series of carefully crafted statements, each senator delivering his pre-prepared speech, often repeating points already made, ensuring his position is on record. You feel your eyelids growing heavy. The temptation to doze off, even for a moment, is powerful, but you resist. Falling asleep in the Senate is not just disrespectful, it's a sign of weakness, an invitation for your rivals to question your dedication and acumen. You pinch yourself subtly, you shift again. You focus intently on a carving on the ceiling, anything to keep your mind engaged. You might even resort to mentally composing a letter to your wife, or planning the next improvements to your villa in Bai, all while maintaining the outward appearance of rapt attention to the speaker's droning voice. Lunch, if it comes at all, is often a brief interruption, a hurried affair of cold snacks brought in by slaves, eaten quickly at your seat, further reinforcing the unyielding nature of the session. There's no leisurely break, no opportunity to truly stretch your legs and clear your head. Just a brief refueling before the next senator rises to deliver his meticulously crafted, often verbose, and almost always predictable oration. This is the engine of empire, you remind yourself, grinding slowly, deliberately, and with an almost unbearable monotony. This is how Rome governs, through endurance, through rhetoric, and through an infinite capacity for the dry, bureaucratic details that underpin all power. And you, as a senator, are a captive audience to its relentless, often soul-numbing performance. The Roman Senate, you quickly learn, is not merely a legislative body. It is a living, breathing embodiment of tradition, a force as immutable and relentless as the tides of the Tiber. Every gesture, every phrase, every procedural step is steeped in centuries of custom, solidified by the ancestors, and deviations are not merely frowned upon. They are an affront to the very fabric of Roman identity. This adherence to tradition, while providing stability, also contributes immeasurably to the pervasive sense of stagnation and the grinding slowness that characterizes senatorial life. You see it in the arrangement of the benches, the strict hierarchy of seating that dictates where each senator may sit based on his rank and previous offices held. There is no question of a younger, less experienced senator occupying a seat reserved for a man who has held the consulship multiple times. This isn't a matter of convenience. It's a sacred order, a visual representation of the Republic's age-old social structure. To inadvertently or deliberately breach this unspoken rule would invite immediate, scathing censure and damage to your dignitas. The very stones of the Curia seem to hum with the echoes of past centuries. Each procedural step a whisper from a long-dead forebear. The formal rituals that precede and punctuate each session are a testament to this deep-seated traditionalism. The taking of the auspices, for instance. Before any major public business can commence, the will of the gods must be consulted, typically through the observation of birds. This is not a quick, perfunctory glance at the sky. It involves skilled augurs, often themselves senators, meticulously interpreting omens, sometimes delaying the start of a session for hours if the signs are deemed unfavorable. You might stand there, fidgeting, silently cursing the flock of pigeons that refuse to fly in the correct direction, knowing that an entire day's agenda could be derailed by a seemingly trivial bird pattern. It's a tedious, time-consuming process that underscores the Roman reliance on ancient belief systems, even in the supposedly rational arena of political discourse. Then there are the elaborate forms of address, the rigid protocols for speaking, for proposing motions, for voting. You never simply stand up and voice your opinion. You must be recognized by the presiding magistrate. You must address him with the correct titles, using the formal, archaic language appropriate to the gravity of the occasion. When a vote is called, it's not a simple show of hands. Often, it involves a complex division, senators moving to one side of the chamber or the other to indicate their vote. A time-consuming physical act that ensures no senator can hide his position. Imagine a roll call that requires everyone to physically relocate to separate areas, then be counted for every single vote. This is the reality. It's a spectacle, a deliberate slowness designed to emphasize the importance of each individual decision and the collective will of the Senate. The legal and procedural precedents are vast, intricate, and often contradictory. A debate on a new law might *quickly devolve into a lengthy discussion about whether the proposal is even procedurally valid, whether it violates some ancient law, lex retroactiva, or whether the presiding magistrate has the proper authority to bring it to a vote. Arguments might hinge on the precise interpretation of a phrase in a law passed 3 centuries ago, or on a ruling made by a long-forgotten consul. Lawyers amongst the senators delight in these intricate, legalistic tangles, using them to delay, obstruct, or simply demonstrate their intellectual prowess. You find yourself listening to lengthy disquisitions on obscure points of constitutional law, the very air in the curia seeming to thicken with the dust of ages. The relevance to the actual issue at hand often becoming completely lost. Even the debates themselves often involve extensive historical comparisons. Senators will not simply argue for or against a policy on its own merits. They will invoke the examples of great Romans of the past, drawing parallels, finding precedents, framing their arguments within the grand narrative of Roman history. Scipio Africanus would never have countenanced such a measure, or this is precisely the kind of policy that led to the downfall of King Tarquin. These appeals to tradition and the ancestors are powerful rhetorical tools, but they also contribute to the prolixity of the speeches and the slow, deliberative pace of the proceedings. You are not just debating policy, you are debating history, constantly weighing the present against the immense, often intimidating legacy of the past. The pressure to conform is immense. A senator who attempts to bypass tradition, to rush proceedings, or to introduce genuinely radical changes without extensive deference to ancient custom, risks not only failure but also severe damage to his reputation. Innovation is tolerated, even encouraged, but it must be presented within the established framework, dressed in the garments of tradition. You learn to speak in the language of the past, even when advocating for the future. You learn to navigate the labyrinthine rules of procedure, using them as both a shield and a weapon. This reverence for tradition is not without its merits. It provided Rome with extraordinary stability for centuries. But for you, the senator trapped on the hard bench, listening to yet another orator meticulously dissecting an ancient legal text, it means endless hours of structured, ritualized tedium. The grand, sweeping narratives of Rome's glorious past, often invoked in these debates, feel ironically distant from the monotonous reality of the present moment. You are a participant in a living museum, constantly performing rituals that connect you to a bygone era, even as the world outside the curia continues to evolve, often at a pace that the Senate struggles to match. The weight of tradition is palpable, a heavy cloak that drapes over every discussion, every decision, making the mundane even more so, and the significant painstakingly slow. And you, a proud Roman, must bear that weight with stoic endurance, for it is the very essence of what it means to be a senator. The slow, grinding wheels of the Roman Senate, propelled by tradition and powered by verbose oratory, inevitably lead to a pervasive, soul-numbing boredom. But this isn't the languid, comfortable boredom of a modern afternoon spent scrolling through endless feeds. This is an active, almost physical boredom, exacerbated by discomfort and punctuated by the insidious whispers of petty politics and baseless accusations as the hours stretch on. Your physical discomfort becomes a constant, nagging presence. The hard wooden bench, initially merely uncomfortable, now feels like a medieval torture device designed to slowly incapacitate your gluteal muscles. You shift, squirm, try to subtly adjust your toga, but relief is fleeting. Your legs begin to cramp, your back stiffens, and a dull ache spreads across your shoulders. There's no chance to stand up and stretch, no quick walkabout to revive circulation. You are essentially a prisoner of your seat, bound by the rigid demands of senatorial decorum. Then there's the bladder. Oh, the bladder. After hours of sitting, and perhaps a morning's consumption of wine-laced water or simple water, the call of nature becomes an insistent, undeniable demand. But leaving the chamber during an important debate is a delicate matter. It signals a lack of engagement, perhaps even disrespect, which can be politically damaging. You try to hold it, to focus on the orator's words, to mentally distract yourself from the growing pressure. You scan the faces of your colleagues, wondering if they too are silently enduring this particular agony. Some of the older senators, less concerned with appearances or perhaps genuinely infirm, might slip out, often with a visible effort. For you, a man still active in the political arena, it's a calculation. How much discomfort can you endure versus how much political capital might you lose by excusing yourself? The indignity of having your mind consumed by such a primal need, while supposedly deliberating the fate of an empire, is a particular brand of Roman absurdity, and as the boredom settles in, a different kind of activity begins to churn beneath the surface. The whispered campaigns of calumny, the subtle slanders, the thinly veiled accusations that are the true lifeblood of Roman politics. The Senate, for all its pomp and gravitas, is a hotbed of personal rivalries and power struggles. When substantive debate falters, or when attention wanes, the focus often shifts to the personal. You might catch a glimpse of two senators exchanging loaded glances, a barely perceptible sneer on one's face. You might overhear a hushed conversation about a colleague's alleged financial improprieties, or a rumor about his scandalous private life. These aren't always direct attacks. Often, they are more insidious, planted as seeds of doubt, designed to slowly erode a man's reputation and influence. Imagine enduring a senator's protracted, tedious speech about grain subsidies, all the while knowing that across the chamber, your bitter rival, Publius Cornelius Scipio, is subtly spreading rumors about your alleged gambling debts, or questioning the legitimacy of your last land acquisition. You can't openly confront him, not in the midst of a formal session. You can only endure, outwardly composed, while your mind seethes with indignation and plans for future retaliation. This is the constant psychological warfare that defines much of senatorial life. The accusations aren't always baseless, of course. Roman society was rife with corruption, ambition, and moral ambiguities. But many attacks are indeed opportunistic, fabricated, or exaggerated for political gain. A senator might be accused of accepting bribes, of colluding with a foreign power, of disrespecting the gods, or simply of being un-Roman in his behavior. These accusations, even if unsubstantiated, can stick. They force you to be perpetually vigilant, to guard your reputation with zealous care, for a single whisper can unravel years of careful cultivation, of dignitas and clientela. The dullness of the debates can also be a breeding ground for these petty feuds. With minds disengaged from the official business, they turn to more immediate, personal dramas. The boredom itself becomes a weapon, allowing malicious gossip to fester and spread. A senator, weary from a long session, might be more susceptible to the sway of a damaging rumor. or more willing to believe the worst about a rival. You see senators subtly exchanging notes, not about the current debate, but about some personal slight or political maneuver. You feel the weight of their scrutiny, knowing that every action, every expression, every fleeting moment of inattention could be misinterpreted or used against you. The atmosphere, at times, can feel less like a deliberative body and more like a intensely personal, gladiatorial arena, where the weapons are words and reputation is the prize. This combination of physical discomfort, mind-numbing boredom, and the ever-present threat of political backbiting creates a unique kind of stress. It's not the stress of imminent physical danger, but the slow, corrosive stress of constant vigilance, of perpetual performance, of maintaining a flawless facade while your internal world is a maelstrom of fatigue, irritation, and strategic calculation. You yearn for the session to end, not for the glory of a triumphant vote, but simply for the relief of being able to stretch your legs, attend to your bladder, and momentarily escape the relentless, grinding pressure of senatorial life, knowing full well that the politicking will simply continue outside the curia walls. When a break for a meal finally arrives, it is not the refreshing respite you might imagine, a chance to truly escape the stifling atmosphere of the curia. Instead, it often transforms into another arena for the relentless performance of senatorial life, a feast of folly where formality and networking intertwine with what often amounts to tedious, obligatory socializing. There's no designated cafeteria, no private dining room for senators. Sometimes, the break is just long enough for slaves to bring in cold, pre-prepared food, often bread, olives, dried meat, and watered wine, which you consume quickly at your seat, the crumbs falling onto your toga, a minor indignity you silently tolerate. The conversation remains subdued, still dominated by the day's proceedings, or shifting to hushed political discussions. It's hardly a break. It's merely a pause in the formal debate, allowing for sustenance on more significant days, or for specific political functions. The meal might be more elaborate, taking place in an adjoining room or a nearby private house. But even then, it's rarely a relaxed affair. You recline on low couches, as is the Roman custom for formal dining, a posture that, while initially seeming comfortable, quickly becomes its own source of discomfort after a long morning of sitting upright. Your slave positions you, arranges your toga around you, and then stands vigil, ready to serve or fetch as needed. The food itself, while often rich and varied, is meant to impress and to facilitate, rather than simply nourish. You might be served delicate appetizers, elaborate main courses featuring exotic meats or fish, and a profusion of fruits and pastries. The wine flows freely, though always diluted with water, a practice that allows for extended drinking without immediate inebriation. Yet, despite the apparent luxury, the meal is rarely enjoyed in a purely convivial sense. This is a networking event, an extension of the morning's politicking. The conversation, while perhaps less formal than in the curia, remains pointedly political. You find yourself engaging in small talk, but always with an ulterior motive. You must carefully navigate the social currents, identifying potential allies, subtly probing for information, carefully avoiding any misstep that could be used against you. Every compliment you offer, every piece of gossip you share, every joke you tell, is a calculated move in the complex game of Roman influence. You might find yourself seated next to a senator you despise, forced to exchange pleasantries, to feign interest in his tedious accounts of his provincial governorship, or to listen patiently to his thinly veiled criticisms of your own policies. The food, however delicious, might stick in your throat as you choke down your irritation. The wine, however fine, does little to dull the sharp edges of political rivalry that permeate the air. You're constantly on guard, constantly analyzing, constantly performing. The sensory details are vivid, the clinking of ceramic cups, the rustle of togas as senators shift on their couches, the rich aromas of roasting meat and exotic spices mingling with the perfume of flowers and the ever-present smell of lamp oil. The sounds of conversation are a constant hum, a tapestry of Latin phrases, polite laughter, and the subtle, almost imperceptible shifts in tone that betray deeper meanings. Slaves move silently among the diners, serving wine, clearing plates, their efficiency a testament to your household's training. You must be careful with your consumption, too. Overindulgence in food or drink is a sign of weakness, of a lack of self-control, and could invite ridicule. You need to maintain your composure, your dignity, even as the rich food and wine try to lull you into a false sense of security. You must balance the need to appear generous and hospitable with the need to remain clear-headed and strategic. The feast of folly is also a stage for subtle displays of wealth and status. The quality of the food, the number of courses, the rarity of the ingredients, the elegance of the serving dishes, the attentiveness of the slaves, all are carefully observed and judged by your peers. A host uses such a meal to reinforce his standing, to demonstrate his influence and resources. As a guest, you are both participant and judge. Absorbing these details, filing them away for future political calculations, there's a subtle cruelty to these gatherings. They offer a temporary respite from the hard benches and procedural strictures of the Curia, but replace it with a different kind of pressure, the pressure of relentless social performance. You can't truly relax, can't truly be yourself. You are always a senator, always a public figure, always conscious of the immense stakes of every interaction. The laughter, however genuine it may occasionally sound, often feels forced, a polite veneer over the underlying currents of ambition and competition. As the meal winds down, and the slaves begin to clear the tables, you feel a renewed sense of weariness, a different kind of exhaustion than that induced by the morning's debates. This is the fatigue of constant vigilance, of never letting your guard down, of navigating a social landscape as treacherous as any battlefield. You prepare yourself for the afternoon session, knowing that the political game, the endless debates, and the constant performance will continue unabated until the sun finally sets on the forum. The feast may be over, but the folly of Roman politics endures, a relentless, all-consuming force in your life. After the brief, often performative interlude of a meal, you return to the Curia, the air feeling heavier, perhaps even more stifling than before. The afternoon session brings with it a particular brand of tedium, the waiting game. This isn't just waiting for your turn to speak. It's waiting for anything to happen, waiting for consensus to form, waiting for the presiding magistrate to make a decision, waiting for the slow, ponderous gears of the Roman legislative machine to grind forward. You resettle on your hard bench, the familiar discomfort now a constant companion, a dull ache that has set in for the duration. The light outside, if it penetrates the high windows, has shifted, perhaps casting longer, lazier shadows across the floor. The energy of the morning, however subdued, has dissipated, replaced by a palpable sense of fatigue that seems to settle over the entire chamber. You see it in the slouched postures of some of the older senators, in the slightly glazed eyes of the younger ones, in the overall air of resignation that permeates the room. Often, the afternoon is consumed by extended periods of inaction. Perhaps a crucial senator whose opinion is needed has not yet returned, causing a delay. Or perhaps a technicality has arisen that requires consultation with legal experts or the retrieval of obscure documents. The Roman Senate, for all its power, is a remarkably inefficient body by modern standards. There's no quick access to information, no immediate research capabilities beyond what a senator or his personal scribes can physically carry into the chamber. Every delay is amplified, every procedural hiccup elongated. You sit there, endlessly, watching the dust motes dance in the occasional shafts of light, your mind cycling through mundane thoughts. You might be planning your next social engagement, or fretting about the harvest on your country estate, or mentally composing your retort to a rival's veiled insult from the morning. Your focus drifts, and you try to pull it back, reminding yourself of the importance of appearing engaged. You practice a subtle nod of agreement, a slight furrowing of the brow to convey thoughtful consideration, even when your mind is miles away. Desperate for stimulation, the sounds of the curia during these waiting periods are a muted symphony of restlessness. A soft cough, the shuffle of sandals on stone, the occasional hushed whisper between two senators, the distant, barely audible sounds from the forum outside, now less a cacophony and more a distant drone. The air, already stale, now seems to grow thicker, heavier, clinging to you like a damp cloak. You might catch the faint scent of stale wine from the earlier meal, mingling with the perennial smells of wool, dust, and old stone. Sometimes, the presiding magistrate himself seems to get lost in thought, or perhaps he is intentionally delaying, waiting for the political winds to shift, for a crucial ally to appear, or for an opponent to simply give up. This tactical inaction is a common feature of Roman politics, a deliberate slowing of the process to wear down the opposition, to create opportunities, or to avoid making an unpopular decision. For you, the senator, this translates into hours of agonizing, anticipatory boredom, where the tension is low but the mental strain is high. You might resort to subtle forms of self-entertainment, mentally counting the number of ceiling beams, observing the intricate patterns in the mosaic floor, trying to decipher the faded inscription on a statue. Anything to keep your mind from succumbing completely to the pervasive ennui. You might even find yourself subtly people-watching, observing the habits and tics of your fellow senators, storing away these small observations for future use. Who habitually rubs his beard when contemplating? Who always glances at the clock, a sundial or water clock, when a speaker begins? These small details can be surprisingly useful in the intricate dance of Roman politics. The sheer unpredictability of the session's end is another source of subtle stress. There's no fixed closing time. The Senate adjourns when the presiding magistrate decides it has. This could be shortly after the main business is concluded, or it could stretch late into the afternoon, or even into the early evening, especially if a contentious debate is ongoing, or if the magistrate wishes to push through a particular agenda item. You cannot simply leave. You are expected to remain until the very end, to endure the waiting game, to demonstrate your unwavering commitment to the Republic, even if your mind and body scream for release. This endless waiting, this prolonged state of suspended animation, breeds a unique frustration. You are a man of power, of influence, accustomed to giving orders and having them followed. Yet here, you are often powerless, a captive audience to the slow, deliberate, and often infuriatingly inefficient machinations of the state. You are a vital cog in the machine, but you are also its victim, subject to its relentless pace and its profound capacity for inaction. The sun outside, if it has been visible, begins its slow descent, its light turning golden, then orange, casting long, dramatic shadows through the high windows. The air in the curia grows cooler, a subtle chill creeping in as the day progresses. You can almost feel the weight of the departing day, the lingering fatigue of all who have sat through its hours of deliberation and, more often, mere endurance. The waiting game continues, an enduring testament to the unique blend of grandeur and grinding tedium that defined life in the Roman Senate. And you, the senator, must play it, day after day, year after year, until either your political career ends or death finally offers its release. The presiding magistrate finally, mercifully, announces the adjournment of the Senate. The relief that washes over you is almost palpable, a physical sensation akin to shedding a heavy cloak. You push yourself up from the hard bench, your muscles stiff and protesting, and join the slow, shuffling exodus from the curia. But do not be fooled. The end of the formal session does not mean the end of your political day. For a Roman senator, the hours asterisk after asterisk the Senate session are often just as demanding, just as performative, and just as utterly draining as you step back into the bustling forum. The light has softened, the long shadows of the monuments stretching dramatically across the paving stones. The cacophony, though perhaps slightly less intense than in the morning, is still very much present. A symphony of evening vendors, late-day business, and the general clamor of Roman life. Your personal slaves, who have been waiting patiently, immediately close ranks around you, providing a small bubble of relative calm amidst the chaos. Your first obligation is often to your asterisk clientela asterisk. These are the citizens, freemen, and even freedmen who depend on your patronage, your influence, your legal counsel, or even just your daily support. They will have been waiting, sometimes for hours, in the forum or outside your domos. They cluster around you, eager to present their petitions, to offer their greetings, to reaffirm their loyalty. You must address each one, however briefly, however you listen to their woes, a land dispute, a debt problem, a request for a recommendation, a plea for legal representation. You offer advice, make promises, issue instructions to your scribes, all while maintaining an air of benevolent authority. This is a crucial aspect of your power base. Neglecting your clients is political suicide. The exhaustion from the day in the curia battles with the absolute necessity of maintaining this network of dependence and obligation. Then come the social demands. Your evening is likely already booked with an obligatory dinner engagement, a asterisk, sena asterisk, at the home of a fellow senator, a wealthy merchant, or a powerful ally. This isn't simply a meal for pleasure. It's an extension of the political arena, another stage for networking and influence peddling. You must dress again, often in a fresh, more elaborate toga for the evening, or perhaps a formal tunic. You must make your way across the city, once again in your litter, or walking if the distance is short and the company suitable. These dinner parties are elaborate affairs, often lasting hours, filled with rich food, copious amounts of wine, and carefully orchestrated conversations. You'll recline on couches, making small talk, listening to endless anecdotes, and engaging in subtle political maneuvering. You must be witty, charming, insightful, and attentive, even if your mind is screaming for rest. You are still performing, still evaluating, still positioning yourself. You're constantly aware of who is watching, who is listening, and what implications your words and actions might have. The sensory details of these dinners are vivid. The flickering light of countless oil lamps and candles, casting dancing shadows on frescoed walls. The rich aromas of exotic dishes, roasted peacock, spiced wine, pungent cheeses, sweet honeyed cakes, mingling with the perfumes of the guests and the faint scent of charcoal from the kitchen. The sounds of conversation, laughter, and perhaps the soothing notes of a lyre or the reedy strains of pipes played by musicians. Slaves move constantly, silently serving, pouring, clearing. You must navigate conversations with rivals, with allies, with those whose favor you seek. You might be asked your opinion on the day's senatorial proceedings, or pressed for information on a delicate political matter. You must answer carefully, strategically, revealing just enough, but never too much. You must appear interested in the mundane details of a host's new villa, or feign amusement at a particularly dull joke, all while your internal clock is begging for the day to end. And if there isn't a dinner party, there might be other obligations. Perhaps a meeting with a general returned from a campaign, needing your support for a triumph, or a late-night consultation with your most trusted advisors, strategizing for tomorrow's session, or even a visit to the baths, less for relaxation and more for the social opportunities it presents. A chance to conduct informal business in a more relaxed, but no less politically charged environment by the time you finally return to your own domas. Often late in the evening, your body aches with fatigue, and your mind is a whirl of conversations, calculations, and unresolved tensions. You might have time for a final, quick meal, or perhaps just a cup of wine before collapsing onto your bed. The heavy wool blankets, which felt so cold in the morning, now offer a welcome embrace against the evening chill. But even then, sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind replays the day's debates, the whispers in the curia, the nuances of the dinner conversation. Finally, the day truly ends. You are back in your domus, the last of your clients dismissed, the dinner parties concluded, the urgent messages dispatched. The soft, flickering light of an oil lamp casts long, dancing shadows on the walls of your private chamber, a comforting, familiar glow against the encroaching darkness of the Roman night. You shed your heavy toga, the itchy wool giving way to the soft linen of your night tunic, a simple garment that feels like liberation after hours of ceremonial restraint. The physical release is immediate, a deep, weary sigh escaping your lips. You settle onto your bed, the mattress filled with wool or straw, offering little true softness, but at least a familiar form. Your body aches, a dull throb in your back, a stiffness in your neck, a general weariness that permeates every muscle. Your eyes are heavy, tired, not just from lack of sleep, but from hours of focused attention, of reading faces, of maintaining a facade of engagement. You close them, and for a moment the world is quiet, but the quiet is deceptive. Your mind, though exhausted, is still churning. You replay the day's events, the monotonous speeches, the subtle digs from rivals, the crucial alliances solidified, the petty squabbles. You dissect your own performance. Did you speak eloquently enough? Did you make a strong impression? Did you miss any opportunities to advance your position or undermine an opponent? The political game is never truly over. It simply pauses, existing in the background of your consciousness, a constant undercurrent of anxiety and strategy. You hear the distant sounds of Rome at night, the occasional bark of a dog, the faint far-off shout of a watchman, the gentle murmur of the city that never truly sleeps. The smells of the day, though fainter, still linger in the air. The faint scent of smoke, of damp stone, of the lingering presence of humanity. You are acutely aware of the contrast between your own relative comfort and the harsh realities faced by the vast majority of Rome's citizens who sleep in crowded, often unsafe insulae, or even in the open air. Your anxieties are political. Theirs are often existential. You reflect on the day, on the weight of being a senator. You are part of an immense, ancient machine, entrusted with the governance of an empire that spans continents. Yet your daily reality is often one of excruciating boredom, relentless formality, and a constant battle against physical discomfort and psychological strain. You remember the grandeur of Rome, the imposing monuments, the glorious history, the immense power you wield, all the things that drew you to this life in the first place. But you also remember the cold benches, the endless speeches, the petty squabbles, the bladder aches, the hours of waiting, the relentless social demands that extend far beyond the formal sessions. The boring reality of the Roman Senate is not a simple lack of excitement. It's a deep, pervasive tedium that settles into your bones. A weariness born of relentless expectation and constant performance. It's the stark contrast between the lofty ideals of republican governance and the grinding, often tedious, mechanics of making it all happen. You are not a romanticized hero of legend. You are a bureaucrat, a politician, a man bound by tradition and constantly navigating a treacherous landscape of influence and ambition. And as sleep finally begins to claim you, drawing you into its depths, you find a strange comfort in this mundane reality. For all its frustrations, it is your asterisk reality. It is the life you have chosen, the path of a Roman senator. And tomorrow you will wake again to the clatter of your household, to the chill of the mosaic floor, to the weight of your toga, and to the endless, glorious, and utterly boring demands of serving the Republic now. As the ancient world fades into the soft darkness, and you find yourself once more in your own time, consider the quiet comforts of your bed, the ease of communication, the speed of modern life. It's a world away from the dusty, demanding corridors of the Roman Senate. Let the echoes of their long, slow days remind you to appreciate the little conveniences we often take for granted. Rest well, knowing that your day, whatever its challenges, is unlikely to involve a multi-hour debate about grain subsidies, while suppressing the urge to use a communal latrine. Good night.